This is the updated sheet. I played around a bit more and I played with scales, so you can see this one's easily 3 inches equals a foot. I was able to make this a 1/4 inch equals a foot. Same thing with the section. I did, cut half of this. It's not both sections of the building. Then this one, I ended up coming in and doing a custom scale to make it as big as I could because this was too monstrous. So I'm going to show you how that works. I'm going to go to my section 1 callout. You can see right here it says custom 1:6, and I picked that because if I go 3:1, that's a 1:4, and that's too big. And if I go 1.5:1, that's a 1:8. So I split the difference, and I just came in here and I said custom, and I made it 1:6. So that's how we ended up with it significantly larger than before. I could give it a name, but I'm just going to leave it at 1:6. I could also come in and I could change these. Instead of showing this, I could show the ratio to be consistent. So let's come in here to section 1. And let me... And I'm not even going to bother with that right now. Alright, so we have a few jobs to do in this sheet. One is to label things. So I'm going to just show an example. I'm not going to do the whole sheet because I want to keep the video short. So I'm going to do an example over here. And then we'll talk about some hatching. And even though on an actual construction document things would be black and white, we'll talk about doing some color in case this is more for presentation. We didn't do it in class, but I did model these structural connections that go from the steel all the way to the CMU. I did them as 3D objects. You can do them as 2D if you want. They are part of the video online. We just didn't get to it in class. If I come in here to my level 3 callout and I click on one, you can see it's just a quick little bracket. If I go to edit in place, I used steel. I disassociated it so that I can copy it around. The problem with these is I made them run the whole length of the wall, but every time you have a window you have to drag the shape handles. So if you just want to save yourself some time and do it in 2D, that's perfectly fine. Alright, so I'm going to come back to my actual sheet because I want to be consistent with my labeling, and if I do it on here and I do it on here on the individual views, I might not look quite right on the sheet. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go to Annotate tab. I'm going to say Text. And we got quite a few options here to start. Align texts. This decides where the leader is. And this is currently set for 2 segment. I like the 2 segment. Gives you a little room. If you prefer single, you can go ahead and use it, or if you want curved, that's fine. I'm going to show the 2 segment though. I'm going to start by coming in, and it starts with the arrow. So I'm going to come in here, and then I'm going to come straight over. And now I can just start typing. I'm going to do steel. And now if I click somewhere else, it finishes it. You can see this is pretty small. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to see what 1/8 of an inch looks like. I'm going to see what 1/4 inch. Why is this not working? Oh, yeah, because I'm not in modify. Okay, so I'm going to highlight it. Just like 1/4 inch. Or 1/8 inch. Let's see what 1/4 inch looks like. That might be actually legible. Yeah, so I'm going to stick with that. It's my biggest option. And now, rather than have a bunch of these going in multiple directions, I'm going to take this first one. I'm just going to use the copy function. I'm going to bring it down. That's probably not far enough. I'll bring it down again. Yeah, I'm going to have to move this one a little bit. Same thing here. And so now I can change the text here. So I can click modify, click on the text box, and I can say air gap. Here I can say, what was it, 3 inches of insulation? 3 inches insulation. Click somewhere else. All right, now maybe I'll come over a little. Again with the copy, trying to keep these the same because it starts to look funky otherwise. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to say copy. Now I'm going to come further over. It's still giving me the nice same angle. And now maybe I'll come down and try and call out. And I'll have to move that a little. Now I got my insulation. Now, what do I want to do on the inside? I'm going to try mirroring it and see if it lets me. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to say mirror draw axis. All right. So now I have the exact same line on the other side. I can move this, get it closer to, ooh, I don't want to do that. See what happens to our leader line. So I'm going to undo. I'm just going to highlight it, and now I'm going to tell the move command. Otherwise, it'll move individual parts. So I'm going to get that closer. Same thing's happening. So copy this one. So now I can change this to be 1 inch wood panel. And now this is 6 inches of insulation. This is CMUs. And then I'm going to say move on this again, and I'm going to structural fastener. And the nice part about having these settings with the align tool, it just shortens this rather than having some weird stuff that happens if you don't have that setting. All right, so I've got all my text the right size. I've got all my leader lines consistent with their orientation. I'll probably pull this one over just a little more. So I'll highlight it, say move. There we go. All right, so that's one. You're going to do the same thing over here. You're going to come in, you're going to label this concrete. We're going to need to make some insulation and a thin steel thing on the outside. But like I said, I'm keeping the video short. So let me go back to this actual view, which is our level 3 callout. And now let's talk about some hatching and coloring. So if you go on to Canvas, you'll see there's Revit library families. It's got the storefront stuff, but it's also got some detail like a top down and a section cut for the CMU. I've already loaded them into this file. So what I can do is I can come to the Annotate tab, and I can come to a detail component. I don't want that. I want my 8x8x16 scored CMU, and that is the wrong view. That's the section. I want the top view. And so now I can line that up with the edge. And you can see I can just copy this now. Copying, for some strange reason, is easier than dropping one in after another. And I can just keep going, and it will cut off wherever I've cropped this. So now I've got my CMU. Insulation. This is technically the hatch for rigid insulation, and it's usually gray if it is colored in. We're going to do it a little differently here and go with yellow and show the hatch for bat insulation. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to override graphics and view by category. Then I'm going to say it's going to be solid. I've already created a yellow over here and saved it. What I ended up doing, I first came to this, and then I played around until I found one I thought was less obtrusive. So I'm just going to click this. Once you find a color you like, you can click add, and it'll end up in this custom colors bar. So I'm going to say OK, apply. OK, why did that not work? I know why. Because I was in a surface and not a cut. Same thing, solid. Pick that yellow. And now that has done that for more than what I wanted. Alright, so these are all parts. So it's gone ahead and done it for all parts. It doesn't care that one part is made up of insulation and the other part is something else. So I'm going to click cancel. And now I'm just going to have to do it one by one. I'm going to grab all of my insulation that's in here. I'm going to hold Control. And I'm going to override by element. Solid. It's lovely yellow. Alright, so now I got the color. What do I want to do for the hatch? In Annotate, you can see there's this nice insulation hatch. All I need to know is how wide it is. So I know this one is 6 inches. If I snap to this midpoint, I can just draw a line. And I've got that hatch. I don't have a midpoint down here, but I have one up here. Drag it down. think we said this was 3 inches. Let's find out. Apparently it's 4. At least in this one. Might be different on the one we've been using in class. So I'm going to come back to annotate, insulation. I'm going to make it 4 inches for this particular one. No, 4. Holy moly. Now I'm going to snap to the midpoint and come all the way out. Same thing here. All right. Now I need more CMU coming this way. I'm just going to, I'm going to come into component, detail component from my annotate tab. And now I'm going to hit spacebar. And now I can copy some more. Midpoint to midpoint. All right, and if you want, you can add some gray to this. I'm going to add some gray to this. This is structural, so anything structural is going to be a darker gray than anything non-structural, like these CMUs. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to override graphics and view by category. And I'm going to leave it by material, but I'm going to make the background solid. I'll use this lighter gray for the CMU. I'll use the darker gray here. If I don't like this, how this is filling in, I can come over to annotate. No, sorry, manage. And if I go to additional settings, and go to fill patterns, now I can pick the concrete fill pattern and go to this edit fill pattern. And now I can change the scale. Right now this is at 1. If I go with a bigger number and say 3, click OK, click OK. Now you can see I've got a little bit more texture that'll be easier to see. So you can play around with that, and that works for a lot of different hatches. So again, fill patterns. We've got all these, and no matter which one you pick, you can come in and you can edit the scale. Alright, I am going to override graphics for the category again. And this time I'm just going to change my background. Unfortunately, it's going to treat the whole thing gray and not just the bit we're cutting. That's all right. Steel. What are we going to do with steel? And this is our floor in the background. I'm not going to worry about that right now. But I've got a steel facade and I've got a steel connector. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to highlight all of them. Oop, no, I don't want that. All right, now I'm going to override graphics by element. And there should be steel in here. And then I'm going to give it a solid color. It comes somewhere in the blue family. That's probably a little ugly and a little aggressive. I'll play with that. So what's left for this is just our wood panels. So I'm going to click on those, making sure I hold control. Override graphics and view by element. My pattern, I'm going to try wood 1. No, let's see what wood 2 looks like. And then again, this would never be on a construction dock, but we're going to give it a try. And since I want to maybe reuse this in other areas, I'm going to click add for now. Unfortunately, it's just replacing that last one. That's fine. Click OK, apply. And so now I got this hatch. It's not going to be terribly visible, but it's going to exist. This blue is really bothering me. So I'm going to come in. Again, I'm going to highlight all this stuff. Not that. All right, still not great, but I'm going to move on. So if you come back to your sheet, now you got something that looks like this. It's got way more detail. You can come into the main floor plan though, and without changing any of the hatching or detail, you can still do some coloring so you have a sense of visual consistency between the two. So what am I going to do with this? Again, color consistency. Try and apply the same yellow to anything that would be insulation in either here or the section. Same grays for your CMUs. Not this blue, something else for your steels. But we need to add some insulation on here. We need to add a steel covering, and we need to add some sort of flashing to keep water from coming back in. So I'm going to go into my section 1 callout. First thing I want to do is get rid of this ugly connection by coming into annotate and doing a filled region. I'm just going to trace along the outside here. Oh, I don't have chain on, so this is not actually... And this one's slightly different shape than what we did in class, and that's all right. So now I've got this region. I'm going to click OK, and it's going to do this weird horizontal line thing. I am going to right click somewhere, override graphics in view, and now I'm going to make the foreground concrete, and I'm going to make the background solid, and I'm going to use that same gray we used for structure in the other one. All right, I got that. I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to override graphics by category in case we happen to see another beam somewhere else. It's already the right material, so I'm just going to change the background color to a solid fill with that same darker gray for structural stuff. Now I'm not going to do the wall here because you've already seen what that's supposed to look like. Actually, I will for the CMUs just because there's a different thing you put in there. So let me come back into, and I can go to detail component, repeating detail component, and now I can do CMU. Just find this line. Unfortunately, I'm off-centered, so let me do that again. Component, repeating detail component, and now I'm just going to come to this edge. I'm going to come straight down. And so now I've got this view. Unfortunately, this is the wall instead of parts. So I'm going to come into visibility graphics. I'm going to make sure parts are visible. And I'm going to make sure walls are not in here. All right, now I can individually control. So if I don't want to see this hatch behind here, that's still the repeating detail. So I'm going to click tab. Until I get the part. Here we go, part. Override graphics in view. I'm just going to make it solid with that lighter gray, and we'll see how that works out. It's okay. We see the grout, we see the, but then we're getting the hatch pattern here. If you want to switch that up, let's see what happens. Yeah, nothing. Insulation's the same, wood's the same, steel's the same. So now we need to do this bit. And the question becomes, do you really want to create this in 3D? Or do you just want to draw it as a 2D object here? If you do choose to go with the 3D option, and you come into roof, I'll just do roof. So this roof one, if you look at the structure, is actually insulation and a thin piece of steel. So you could do that as a roof by extrusion. Just make sure, since this is 6 inches, you're doing a 6-inch offset, and do it from a view that your section is cut from. I'm just going to do it as 2D this time around though. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to make annotate, I'm going to do a filled region, I'm going to say pick line, I'm going to pick here and here, here, and now I'm going to do an offset. I'm just going to do 4 inches this time. That might be a little aggressive for this. We'll find out. I'm going to switch to regular line, get rid of my offset. I think I could use trim. And trim this to this, this to this, and I think we have a crazy long line. And so now I have a shape, and I can put some insulation in there. Again, I'm going to right click, override graphics and view by element. Unfortunately, we don't have a really good insulation here other than the rigid one. I'm going to stick with that for now, but I am going to go with that same yellow just to make it show. Now I could try, and I'll see what it does. Could come in here, and I could draw from there to there, and then maybe, yeah, that works. And then that gets a little hairy, but that's good. Now I could come in to the actual thing and I could change. I'll just go to solid fill, apply. Oh, nope, I don't want black. Let's just go to by material. I'll just make it not visible. There we go. A little weird transition at the angle, but you get the point. Now we would cover all of this in steel. So again, I'm going to come into region, filled region. I'm going to start with pick lines. I'm going to grab all of these. What's going on? That's okay. I'll just keep drawing. And now I can go back to pick lines and I can do something like a 1/8 inch of an offset or a 1/4 inch, probably 1/4 inch just so it's visible on some level. And now I want to get rid of that so I don't accidentally draw a line in the wrong place. This would probably come down a little further, but we're going to use the drip edge and flashing in a second anyway. So I'm going to click OK, right click, override graphic by element, same drill. I'm going to come in, I'm going to do my steel pattern. I'm going to pick a background with some hopefully less hideous blue. Maybe I'll just go with this dark green instead. Oh, that's not dark green. I'm going to try it. Can't be worse than what was on the other one. Alright, so what's left for this is the flashing. So I'm going to start it pretty far back. If you've never seen flashing, it comes down and then it comes out at an angle because water will follow the curve and it will come right down this surface and wrap along the bottom. So you need to give a drip edge that forces it. It can only come back so far before it falls down. So I'm going to do another filled region. I'm just going to come down here. I'm going to come past. And now I'll switch to pick lines again. Well, first I'll do just a 1/4 inch this way. Now I just need to close that up. Change that back to 0. And I'm gonna just come straight over and down. It's gonna be the same look as this, although it's probably aluminum rather than steel. So I'm gonna right click, override by element, aluminum. Pick an even lighter gray. Alright, so that is most of what you need to do. Again, finish the wall to be consistent with your other one. But now back in our sheet, now we've got this. If you want to come in and load a skylight detail, you're welcome to. We're going to do that more later in the semester. Again, this is part of the roof that's not being cut, so you can make it gray if you want, but you're not going to see this pattern. All the same stuff. I'm just going to actually copy this one over. Click move. I find it easiest to go from the leader so you know where you're going. So this is 4 inches of insulation. I copy it again. And I'm going to come from here to here. And then again, maybe down, calling out the concrete. And let's see about the flashing. Any of your wall components. The flashing, we might have to tweak a little. So I'm going to drag this and just try and go straight as I can. There we go. Seem to manage. Kept it inside of the sheet. 6 inches of concrete. This is the general concept. This video is already crazy longer than I wanted it to be. I'll finish this off video and bring it into class just so you have a sense of the completed version.